This is Josh Mathews, and you are in the Wrestling Epicenter.
You're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio, featuring the Interactive Interview, courtesy of WrestlingEpicenter.com. Welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. It is your host, James Walsh, and this week we are going to be joined by the voice of Impact Wrestling since 2015, former WWE superstar and current Impact Wrestling GFW announcer, and one of the stars of the recent Slammiversary pay-per-view, Josh Mathews joins us for the first time ever. Josh seemed to be a little bit short on time, but we do what we do. We get the best out of the time that we have, and I think we really delivered a fun interview here. Invite everybody to continue to check out Impact Wrestling on Pop TV. Contract was extended through 2018. Really exciting time to be a Global Force Wrestling fan, a TNA fan as it were, because you have the Global Wrestling Network launch. You have their digital platforms just starting to boom. They've reached over 1 billion people on YouTube. They have now really shown that they're not going anywhere, and we need to stop these fake news stories by the hopeful, and it's scary, but it's true, by the hopeful wrestling media that seems to forget what it was like in 2001 when we lost ECW and WCW, and we had no other options. I was there. I still have a scar on the back of my hand from the day WCW was sold because I punched a brick wall. Not my smartest moment. I kind of Goldberged myself, referring, of course, to when Goldberg punched the crap out of a window and continued punching it even though he obviously had severed his hand in several places. Bottom line, this company is moving forward. I like how Josh puts it in the interview. He says that they're matriculating the ball down the field in 5- and 10-yard increments. Good way of putting it. Football reference for my international reference. Real football. Anyway, hope everybody enjoys our interview with Josh Mathews. Check out Impact Wrestling on Pop TV every Thursday night. And also check out in the UK on Spike UK Impact every Friday night. So really, really good time for Impact Wrestling.
Hola, this is the Wednesday Night Delight, Johnny Mundo, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Come on!
Let me talk to you, dummies. It's Eli Drake, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with me right now is Global Force Wrestling, Impact Wrestling's announcer extraordinaire, Josh Mathews. Mr. Mathews, are you on the phone with us?
I am. Thank you guys for having me.
So glad to have you on the show. Of course, the big news coming out of Global Force this week, the non-fake news, and we'll get to that in just a sec, is the launch of the Global Wrestling Network. How excited are you guys to enter in the 21st century with this new platform?
Well, it's super exciting, and it's, in 2017 and going forward, I think you have to have a footprint and a presence on these OTT platforms, and not only will we have the Global Wrestling Network, GWN, but we'll also be on Pluto TV, which is a streaming over-the-top service, free service We're also on Ron Fighting in Germany. That launched last week. So we're really growing digitally, exponentially, and it's certainly an exciting time for all of us here.
Absolutely. And as a fan who's been there literally since the first pay-per-view, and I know we'll get to that in a few moments, it's so exciting to see this company moving in the right direction. But last week kind of reminded me of some of the news stories that we saw maybe this time last year, where the people were surmising the demise of the company. And it seemed, I don't know, I never bought into it last week, but I wanted to get your take. Why is there such an urge to report on this company's demise when things seem to be moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew. It's something that you always, at this point it becomes white noise because we've seen it so many times. Even when I was in WWE for 13 years, you would see, monthly or weekly that, Impact or TNA or whatever it was called in that time frame, was going away, wasn't going to exist anymore. And now being here and defending it and, constantly seeing these rumors and these stories and what I call the fake news, it gets tiresome, but, you have to stop looking at it and stop paying attention to it and just kind of know, what's going on and know where we're going and know what we're building towards.
I mentioned earlier on that I've been a fan since the beginning, and you mentioned on air on Impact that you were scheduled to appear at one of the first pay-per-views of Impact Wrestling or Global Force or however you want to call it, TNA. I guess my question for you was going to be, why didn't you make that appearance?
Because I got an offer from WWE to work there, and that was at the time my number one priority, and I was able to rip up the contract that I had with this company and go and pursue the opportunity and the goal that I had set for myself from a very young age, and got to experience my career there before I came here.
Very cool, very cool. Now, when you went there, you became an announcer, hanging up the tights for at least a little while, or a good long while, actually. I watched some interviews with you from back at the time when you were making appearances with like the XWF, and you've always sounded like you sound now. Incredibly well-spoken, intelligent. Which came first, and how did they know that you were interested in being an announcer?
When the season 2 of Tough Enough ended, and they flew us back to New York to do, what do you call those? A reunion episode, and it was there that I was approached to be an announcer, and I flew to New York a few weeks later, and they just saw me, just having fun, not really caring about what was happening, the filming, and it was 2 long days of filming, and I was in New York, which is my favorite place in the world, and they just saw me having fun, and they thought that was something that they could put on television. And at the same time, I was being I was talking with MTV about being a VJ. This was before they changed everything, got rid of the VJ. So there was kind of, the hosting was sort of like presenting itself to me as an opportunity that I never saw coming when I was training to be a wrestler.
Very cool. And speaking of being an announcer, you professed online that you were the greatest announcer, best play-by-play guy in the world today. And I, by the way, happen to agree with that. But my question would be, did you expect it to kind of launch this whole heel thing for you when you said it?
No, because I had been saying it for a while. It wasn't something that I had just come up with that day. I said it when I left WWE. I said it to Wade Keller the next day, and I said it on various platforms. And I said that my contract not being renewed from there had nothing to do with talent. That was the only issue that I had with them. So, I believe it. I said it. It had legs, and we ran with it.
All right. Well, you did run with it, and you led to some great stuff, but we'll get to that in a sec. I actually wanted to ask you, though, as one of the best play-by-play announcers, if not the best play-by-play announcer going today, one of the rants that I went on our last broadcast, and you probably didn't have a chance to hear it, but we had Jay Lethal on, and I was discussing the lack of quality announcers for this online platforms, these platforms that are online, and you get somebody calling it, and they clearly don't know who they're calling because they're calling him he all the time, and they're the moves, they say what a move, but they never tell you what the move was. I guess I just wanted to ask you, how do you put the shine on the product, and what sets you apart from the rest?
Well, you always have to remember that it's not about you calling it. And, the best advice I ever got was, if I get someone over, I get over in the process. So if I can get a talent over, then I'm getting over. And that's just the way it was presented to me at a very young age. It didn't really sink in for a few years, but it makes the most amount of sense in the world. If I can get a talent over, then in the process, I'm getting myself over without trying.
Very good. I hear a little bit of Vince McMahon in your commentary. Vince McMahon, the commentator, would he be an influence on you?
Absolutely. He was the second half of my career. He was the audience that I was working to. Not that I was trying to appease one audience. I've heard that said by people in the past, but he's the one that is listening to every word that you're saying. While you're calling his shows, and he wants you to call them a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you left the WWE and started working with Impact Wrestling. And for years, I know that that's not a word that you're allowed to use when you're working for the WWE. So when your name of your company includes the word wrestling, was it an adjustment period for you to get used to saying wrestling again?
Not really. I still don't say it a whole lot. I also never said TNA, even though it was the name of the company for 2.5 years while I was calling these shows, because it was something that I just didn't like. So you find ways around it. Look, they are bigger than wrestlers. They're bigger than wrestling. So, you can change it and you can call them stars. And I love the branding of Knockouts. I think that works super well. And I think that the Knockouts, that branding is better than any other branding for female wrestlers anywhere. Stars just seems to fit with the male talent. But, athletes, there's ways to get around if you don't want to say the word wrestling. Like, look, I wasn't allowed to say the word belt for years, but I still don't think that you call it a belt. It's a championship.
Very cool. You mentioned in another interview, I think it was the Sam Roberts interview, that you had two options presented to you. One was to go to TNA and work in Nashville, and the other one was to go to Los Angeles. I don't know the answer to this, so I'm asking you legitimately, was that for another wrestling promotion?
Yeah, it was for Lucha Underground. I had a contract in my home office for both companies, the Lucha Underground one, and then, to come here to Nashville. And I decided to come here, and, Lucha kind of was always there. I was actually in L.A. When they were getting ready to tape their first shows, and I was doing another project. And their play-by-play guy couldn't make it or something like that. It was like the night before. And, again, they had called and asked me, like, this, we know you're here. You're right down the street. You don't have to sign the contract that we have. You come up with whatever you want. We're really in a bind here. And I stuck with the decision that I made to stay here with Impact and not pursue what they were doing, even though it was very tempting. After seeing, their facility and seeing everything that they were doing, it was very tempting to go and be a part of Lucha Underground.
Very good. What do you think of their show overall?
Honestly, and this isn't like me trying to make a joke or be insulting, I don't watch it. The only wrestling that I watch is our product. Everything we produce I watch. And then, I'm wrestling out after watching all of our stuff. It's just I have so many interests and so many different things that I'm working on that I don't have time or the desire, quite frankly, to watch, any other wrestling product.
All right, so before your WWE run, you made appearances for the XWF, which was filmed in a soundstage, much like the ones that the Impact Zone are in. I guess my question...
Actually, the same one.
The same one? Okay.
Yeah.
I did not even know that. So how cool was it to kind of go full circle and come back in there and see and be calling action in basically the place where you started wrestling professionally?
Honestly, I don't ever think about it. It's not something that comes up in my brain. The only reason that I know that we were in the same soundstage is because somebody told me the last time we were there. I'm a super forward thinker. I don't think about where I've been, what I've done. It's all about forward momentum and where we're going next, more so than sitting back and thinking about things that I've done in my career.
You had some laser sharp segments with Jeremy Borash. Some of that stuff, just like for the smart marks, if you will. We're sitting there, eating this stuff up and laughing our asses off. I guess my question would be, how did you enjoy your feud with Jeremy Borash?
It was fun. It was, it was a little uneasy at times, but overall, I think I do look back on anything. Looking back at that, it was, it was fun. I think the outcome got us to where we want to be and where we're going forward. So that's the most important thing to me.
All right, we're going to wrap up here in a few minutes because I know you're short on time. Something that comes up a lot when people try to bash you, and I know you don't read the internet because you don't like that kind of stuff, but they always say, well, he took Mike Tenay's job. He took Mike Tenay's job. I guess my question was, when you guys were involved in the feud and you were going to be doing Slammiversary, was Mike Tenay considered to call that show?
Yes, he was. I don't know what happened, but I know that, yes, he was.
Oh, okay. And speaking of that match, I mean, that was some awesome stuff. You guys with the Shark Boy and with Father James Mitchell, there was just some fun stuff for everyone. It harkened back to, not to use a dirty word, but to the Broken Universe and that kind of stuff. It really just was over-the-top booking, and it was just a lot of fun to watch. Did it give you the itch to get back in the ring any more often than you do?
No, I think it kind of put all of that to rest for me. And you know, no, I'd never had any desire to do that once my career went on this path. So, you know, I did it willingly. I had fun, but it's not something that I ever regret, you know, the decision I made or go back there.
All right. So despite the fake news hiccup of last week and everything back to normal this week with sorry, I almost said Lucha Underground, with Global Force Wrestling moving forward and the launch of the Global Wrestling Network and all the other good things that you have going with TV deals and so on and so forth, what do you expect the future to be for Impact Wrestling, Global Force Wrestling?
I just think, like I said to someone the other day, you know, we're moving in 5 to 10 yard increments. You know, we're not moving in Hail Marys. So it's one of those deals where, you know, just stick with us. It's not going away. You know, the reports of our demise have been greatly exaggerated again. And it's just one of those deals where, you know, when you see things like GWN or when you see things like the Pluto TV or you see things like Ron Fighting, you know, we're back on Spike in the United Kingdom. They're very happy with everything we're doing. Last week or 2 weeks ago was the second highest rated premiere that we've done. That doesn't include consolidated numbers with DVRs and stuff. So it was just really just the one airing of the show last Friday. So, you know, everything is moving in a direction that it needs to be. And, you know, if you're with us, great. If you're not, that's cool too. Like I always tell people, I like Coca-Cola, not Pepsi, but I don't go out of my way or care to say anything negative about Pepsi. I've got way more things to worry about.
I wonder if there are people who go on Twitter and just say, if you drink Pepsi, you suck. You know?
I don't know. That's a good question.
All right. Well, before I let you go, can I ask for one last favor from you? Just giving me a liner saying this is Josh Mathews and you're in the Wrestling Epicenter.
This is Josh Mathews and you are in the Wrestling Epicenter.
This is Mr. AIP, Eddie Edwards, and you're listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio.